Across the stars there were countless planets. Some were green and peaceful, with soft air and gentle winds. Others were barren, dry, or covered in ice. But among them, a few worlds carried a reputation so dark that their names were spoken only in whispers. These were known as death worlds. To the alien races of the galaxy, death worlds were more than dangerous. They were nightmares. Entire civilizations told stories about them, using them to frighten children into obedience. "Stay close. Behave well," alien parents warned, "or you will be sent to a death world." These planets were not merely unfriendly. They were killers. Every moment on such a world was a fight against something. Gravity too strong, air too thin, storms too violent, predators too merciless. To the aliens, even a single day on such a planet was impossible. Their bodies were too fragile, their minds too cautious, and their technology too limited to cope with such endless hostility. For generations, alien starships passed near these planets but never dared to land. Explorers mapped them from orbit, scanning their surfaces with fear and wonder. The readings always told the same story: temperatures that swung between fire and ice, skies filled with toxins, oceans filled with monsters, jungles alive with venom. Entire research councils voted again and again to forbid any landing attempts. In one galactic archive, a historian once wrote, "To step onto a death world is not exploration, it is suicide." And so the archives grew thick with warnings. Alien captains shared their tales in hushed tones. One spoke of a crew that attempted to mine a death world's rich metals. Within minutes, storms shredded their landing craft like paper. Another told of a team of scientists who thought they could survive with sealed suits and machines. Hours later, the jungle itself seemed to rise against them, crushing their camp, tearing their shelters, and leaving nothing behind but broken tools. Entire fleets learned the lesson. No wealth was worth the risk, no knowledge was worth the cost. The death worlds remained untouched, sealed by fear, left to spin alone in silence. But fear was not just in the stories. It lived in the bodies of the aliens themselves. Their biology was tuned for safety. Their skin was soft, their lungs weak, their hearts delicate. For them, even small wounds could mean death. Disease spread quickly, poisons worked too well, and predators always outmatched them. When they looked at death worlds, they did not see places to live. They saw instant graves. And so, the galaxy adjusted. Alien civilizations built their homes. On easy planets, worlds where the air was gentle and the seas calm. They sought balance, safety, and harmony. In their councils and governments, the idea of entering a death world became not just foolish, but forbidden. Yet, despite all these warnings, a question sometimes lingered in the minds of the curious. Why were these planets so harsh? Was it nature's design? Or were they cursed by something older, something the galaxy had forgotten? The answer never came because no one stayed long enough to discover it. Fear silenced curiosity. The death worlds remained mysteries wrapped in storms, jungles, and death. But the story of fear did not end there. Something began to change. Strange. Rumors reached the galactic councils. Unconfirmed reports whispered at first, then spreading like fire. A new species had arrived among the stars. Not just any species, humans. At first, the aliens laughed at the idea. Surely no fragile newcomers could do what the older civilizations had feared for centuries. Surely they too would avoid the cursed planets, the killers of worlds. But then, the reports grew more detailed. Scouts spoke of human colonies on planets no sane explorer would touch. Stories told of humans laughing in poisonous jungles, building homes where storms tried to tear them apart, drinking water from rivers that should have killed them instantly. The aliens dismissed these as lies, exaggerations, or myths. No one can survive a death world, they insisted. It is not possible. Yet the evidence grew, and with it, unease spread. For if these reports were true, then the galaxy faced something it had never seen before. The fear of death worlds was deep in every alien mind. But now there was a new fear rising, one far more unsettling: the fear of those who called such worlds home. In the grand halls of alien councils, leaders whispered, what kind of species would not fear the death worlds? What kind of beings would look upon death and see only challenge? They did not yet know the answer, but they would soon. For the humans were not avoiding the death worlds. They were walking straight into them. And what terrified the aliens most was not that humans might survive. It was the thought that humans might thrive. The first confirmed sighting came from a quiet trading sector on the edge of the galaxy. A routine patrol ship passed near a death world and expected to record the usual storms, earthquakes, and toxic seas. But the scanners showed something strange, shapes that did not belong. At first, the crew thought it was a mistake. They reset the systems, cleaned the lenses, checked again. The result was the same. Structures. Not ruins, not alien machines, but fresh, living structures. The patrol captain ordered closer scans, and what they saw made their hearts freeze. There were lights moving through the storms, bright fires glowing. In the endless dark, there were shapes of walls, shelters, towers, even farms. Farms growing in soil that no alien had ever dared touch. The captain refused to believe it. Impossible, he whispered. No one can live down there. Yet the data refused to lie. Someone was not only surviving, they were building. Teo. Report reached the nearest council, where scientists argued for hours. Some said it was a trick of the sensors, a reflection of energy. Others swore it was impossible life, some strange parasite that grew like machines. Finally, one message arrived from the patrol ship's ground scout. 5 words that changed everything. They called themselves humans. At first, no one understood what that meant. The species was new, barely known in the galactic maps. Records described them as small, fragile, barely a century into space travel. Yet here they were on a death world, doing what every other race had feared for thousands of years. Other ships were sent, this time with caution. They circled the deadly planet from orbit, watching closely. What they saw shocked them again and again. Humans were not hiding in sealed domes or fragile machines. They walked outside, under burning suns and black storms. They wore simple coverings, carried strange tools, and acted as if nothing was wrong. Where alien lungs would collapse, humans breathed. Where alien flesh would burn, humans laughed and kept moving. One scout ship reported a scene that became famous across the stars. A storm broke over the human settlement, with winds strong enough to shatter steel. The aliens watching from orbit expected the humans to run and hide. Instead, the humans sang. They worked together, tying down their shelters, standing against the storm as if it were nothing more than an evening challenge. And when the storm passed, they cheered. They celebrated survival like victory. To the aliens, it was madness. To the humans, it was life. More reports followed. In one region, humans planted crops in poisoned soil. The plants should have died in days, but with human care, they grew tall and strong. In another region, humans hunted creatures so deadly that entire alien cities would have fled. Yet the humans tracked them, killed them, and roasted them over fire with smiles on their faces. The most unsettling detail was not just their survival, but their joy. Humans seemed to enjoy the challenge. Where aliens saw death, humans saw adventure. Where others saw certain doom, humans saw home. One alien observer wrote, "They do not fear the death world. They treat it as if it belongs to them. It is as if the planet itself bends to their will." The alien councils grew restless. Was this species reckless? Were they suicidal? Or was there something in their nature that made them immune to fear? Debates filled the great halls. Some leaders suggested cutting all contact. If they can survive death worlds, then we cannot control them, they warned. Others wanted to study them. Perhaps we can learn their secrets, they argued. But whatever the opinion, one fact could not be denied. Humans were rewriting the rules of survival. The turning point came when a group of alien traders tried to land on a nearby moon, not far from one of the human colonies. The moon itself was less hostile, but still unstable, its surface split with quakes and rivers of fire. The aliens landed cautiously, setting up machines and shelters. Within hours, disaster struck. A sudden eruption tore their camp apart. Poison smoke filled the skies. The aliens panicked, calling for rescue, certain that none of them would live. But before their ships could arrive, shapes appeared through the smoke. Humans. The aliens expected death, but instead they found help. The humans carried them through the fire, guided them through toxic fog, and patched their wounds with simple, clever tools. To the humans, this was not horror. It was routine. When the traders finally returned home, they brought more than their cargo. They brought a story of beings who smiled in the face of death, who lived where others would never dare to walk. From that moment, whispers spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, in markets and stations, in starships and councils, one question rose again and again: who are these humans? To the aliens, it was more than curiosity. It was fear. For if humans could call a death world home, then what else could they do? If storms and poisons and predators could not stop them, then what in the galaxy possibly could? No answer came. Only more stories, each more shocking than the last. And in the shadows of those stories, the galaxy began to change. The death worlds, once untouchable, no longer seemed so distant. They were no longer symbols of death. They were symbols of humanity. The aliens watched, uneasy and uncertain, for they knew one thing was true: the humans had arrived, and they would never see the galaxy the same way again. The galaxy is a place of order. For ages, the older species had mapped the stars, recorded laws of survival, and trusted in their wisdom. Death worlds were closed chapters, forbidden places that no one dared to test. But when humans arrived and began to settle those very planets, the galaxy could not look away. Curiosity spread like a fire. Scientists wanted to know how. Soldiers wanted to know why. Traders wanted to know what profit could be made. And ordinary citizens, they simply wanted to know if the stories were true. Soon, the councils that once forbade all contact changed their tone. They ordered quiet missions, secret observations, and careful studies of these strange newcomers. They did not send fleets, not yet. They sent shadows, scout drones, hidden satellites, cloaked ships in orbit. From the darkness above, alien eyes watched the humans below. What they saw unsettled them more with each passing day. One report described a human child running barefoot across jagged rocks. The air was thin and the winds sharp as knives, yet the child laughed as if the danger was a game. Another account spoke of farmers plowing land in poisoned soil, their hands blistered but their crops thriving. Entire villages stood on cliffs where storms struck every night, their lights shining defiantly against the chaos. Aliens were baffled. They kept asking the same question: why don't they leave? Why don't they fear? Some thought it was madness. Others suggested humans had no sense of danger, that their brains were broken. But the longer they watched, the clearer the truth became. Humans were not reckless. They were adaptable. Where alien species built machines to avoid danger, humans built strength to meet it. Where others fled from pain, humans endured. They healed quickly, fought fiercely, and learned fast. To them, hardship was not a wall. It was a teacher. One secret mission sent a small alien crew down to the surface of a human colony. They disguised themselves, cloaked their ship, and approached quietly, hoping to collect samples. But their plan did not go as expected. They landed near a forest filled with beasts that even their strongest weapons feared. Within minutes, they were cornered. The creatures surrounded them, eyes glowing, jaws dripping with venom. The aliens prepared to die. Then the humans appeared. Hunters with simple spears and fire torches charged into the darkness. They moved with confidence, striking, with precision, driving the monsters back. And when it was over, they laughed together as if they had just finished a sport. The aliens were frozen. They had seen bravery before, but never like this. These humans did not fight for survival alone. They seemed to enjoy it. Back in the councils, debates grew heated. "They are dangerous," said one voice. No species should thrive on death worlds. If they can survive there, they can survive anywhere. That makes them a threat. They are a miracle, said another. Imagine what we could learn. Imagine if we could endure as they do. But, beneath all the arguments, one feeling was the same across every world: fear mixed with fascination. Ordinary aliens were no less curious. In markets and stations, merchants whispered rumors. Adventurers bragged about meeting humans, though most had never seen one. Children dared each other to imagine what it would be like to step onto a death world, if only for a moment. And slowly, very slowly, something began to shift. Death worlds, once the symbol of ultimate terror, now became symbols of mystery. They were no longer only cursed planets. They were the places humans called home. One alien historian recorded it perfectly. We studied the death worlds for centuries and saw only death. Then the humans came, and in the same place they saw life. What does that say about them? What does that say about us? The secret studies continued. In one experiment, an alien team compared human bodies to their own. The results were shocking. Human bones were dense, far denser than expected. Their muscles were strong, their immune systems stubborn, their reflexes quick. Most disturbing of all was their psychology. Where alien soldiers broke under stress, humans grew sharper. Where others panicked in storms, humans smiled and worked faster. Danger did not crush them, it sharpened them. A scientist wrote with shaking hands, "They do not just survive, they grow stronger the more the world tries to kill them. But curiosity has a price." In one shadow mission, a cloaked alien ship crashed near a human village. The crew hid, terrified of being discovered. But the humans found them anyway. The aliens expected anger, maybe even death. Instead, the humans offered food, fire, and shelter. They spoke strange words, but their intent was clear. Kindness. The crew could not believe it. These people who could wrestle with storms and monsters, who lived in places that no sane species would ever dare, still had room for compassion. They were terrifying, and yet strangely welcoming. When the crew returned, they carried not just samples and data, but a new fear. For if humans could be so strong and still so kind, then what place would they claim in the galaxy? Were they conquerors? Were they allies? Or were they something far more unpredictable? The councils debated again, but there were no answers. The only truth was this: humans had changed the way the galaxy saw death worlds, and with it they had changed the way the galaxy saw life itself. The aliens no longer only feared the cursed planets. They feared the humans who thrived there, and yet they could not stop watching. For a long time, the galaxy only watched. Humans were studied from a distance, whispered about in council chambers, and debated in hushed tones. But distance never lasts forever. Sooner or later, curiosity, fear, or greed pushes someone too close. The first true clash came on the mineral-rich world of Caros 7. The planet was a known death world, its surface cracked by endless earthquakes, its skies thick with poison clouds, and its ground crawling with creatures that could tear through steel. Every alien species marked Caros 7 as forbidden. No one dared touch it. No one except humans. When an alien fleet arrived to harvest rare crystals, they expected an empty, hostile wasteland. Instead, they found smoke rising from the ground, shapes of homes clinging to cliffs, and lights glowing in the poisonous dark. Humans were already there. The fleet captain demanded answers. How had they landed without permission? How had they survived the storms and monsters? But the humans did not answer with fear. They stood calmly on the cliffs, wind tearing at their clothes, and simply waved as if welcoming neighbors. The aliens grew angry. This was not possible. These were supposed to be cursed lands, not human playgrounds. To prove a point, they sent soldiers down to inspect the colony. The soldiers stepped into chaos almost instantly. Earthquakes shook the ground. Toxic rain fell from black clouds. Creatures with armored hides burst from the rocks, jaws snapping. The soldiers panicked. Their suits cracked, their weapons jammed, their formation broke. Above, their commanders prepared to call a retreat. But then something happened that froze them in silence. The humans appeared, not in machines, not in heavy armor, but on foot. Men and women carrying spears, blades, and strange fire launchers charged into the storm. They moved like they had done this 100 times before. With steady hands and fearless hearts, they fought off the beasts, shielded the soldiers, and guided them to safety. To the aliens, it looked impossible. Humans moved through poison as if it were mist. They braced against quakes as if the earth itself bowed to them. Where the soldiers saw certain death, the humans saw routine. When it was over, the humans laughed, patted each other on the back, and carried the injured soldiers to shelter. The alien commanders were stunned. What they had just witnessed was not survival, it was mastery. Back in orbit, the fleet's council debated what to do. Some demanded retreat. "We cannot compete with this species," they warned. "If they can claim death worlds, they will claim the galaxy." Others wanted alliance. Better to stand with them, they argued, than to face them as enemies. But the hardest truth was this: the humans had revealed something no one had wanted to believe. Death worlds were not forbidden, they were homes. Homes for humans. More clashes followed. On another death world, an alien science team attempted to build a research outpost. Within days, storms ripped it apart. The team was lost, until humans arrived again. They rebuilt the camp with simple tools, using stone, wood, and fire. Where advanced machines failed, human hands succeeded. The scientists were humbled. They had studied these worlds for centuries, but in 1 week, humans taught them more than all their books combined. One scientist wrote in their log, "It is not that humans ignore danger. It is that danger itself bends before them. They adapt faster than storms, heal faster than wounds, and endure longer than fear. They are not visitors to death worlds. They are their children." But not every encounter was peaceful. On the burning plains of Dravos 9, alien mercenaries attempted to seize resources by force. They expected humans to scatter, as weaker species often did. Instead, they found resistance. Farmers picked up rifles. Children carried knives. Entire villages stood shoulder to shoulder against armies. The mercenaries unleashed fire. Humans fought back harder. The battle raged for hours, storms crashing overhead, ash filling the sky. In the end, the mercenaries fled in terror, leaving behind weapons, machines, and broken pride. One survivor gasped as he reported, "They do not fight to live. They fight because they will not kneel. To them, even death itself is not enough to break their will." These revelations spread across the galaxy. Every encounter added to the legend. Every clash made the story grow larger. And in those stories, a terrible realization took shape. If humans could claim the worst planets in the galaxy, if they could face storms, monsters, and armies without breaking, then what chance did any ordinary species have against them? The death worlds had always been feared, but now something more frightening existed: the humans who thrived on them. Yet even as fear grew, so did wonder. Some alien leaders began to see not just danger but hope. If humans could turn death into life, perhaps they could lead others to survive too. Perhaps what once was forbidden could now be possible. But others saw only shadows. To them, humans were not saviors. They were warnings. If humans called death worlds paradise, then perhaps the rest of the galaxy was just their playground waiting to be claimed. The councils divided. Some reached out in friendship. Others began to prepare for war. But one truth could not be denied. The galaxy had changed forever. Because on that day, when humans stood unbroken in the heart of a death world, the aliens finally understood. These worlds had never been empty. They had been waiting for the only species strong enough to call them home. And now, that species had arrived. The galaxy is full of stories. Tales of brave explorers, great wars, and vanished empires fill the archives of every world. But none spread as fast or as fearfully as the stories of humans. What began as whispers in trading posts grew into legends carried across entire star systems. In marketplaces, alien merchants told of humans building homes where storms ripped, mountains apart. In quiet taverns, mercenaries swore they had seen humans fight monsters with nothing but knives and fire. On council floors, leaders debated in panic, repeating the same phrase again and again. They thrive where death itself rules. The words became a warning, and then a prophecy. At first, some tried to dismiss the tales. Exaggerations, they said. No one can truly survive death worlds, but evidence kept piling up. Patrol ships recorded footage of human settlements standing firm in places no other species could enter. Survivors of battles returned with scars and stories of human strength. Even scientists, once skeptical, now admitted the truth. Humans were different. The galaxy watched in uneasy silence, but silence did not last. Soon, stories turned into songs. Children on alien worlds dared each other to be like the humans. Soldiers whispered prayers before battle, calling on the courage of the Death World people. And scholars, once ashamed of their fear, began to write poems about the strange newcomers who laughed at storms. The humans themselves seemed unaware of the growing legend. To them, it was not heroism. It was simply life. Where others saw horror, they saw challenge. Where others broke, they endured. And that very simplicity made them more terrifying. The greatest shift came when death worlds themselves gained new meaning. No longer were they forbidden zones or cursed lands. They became symbols of humanity's place in the stars. Every time, a new report surfaced, another colony built on toxic soil, another farm raised in storm-ravaged valleys. The galaxy's respect and fear deepened. One alien historian wrote with trembling hands, "We once thought the death worlds were warnings, written by nature itself. Now we see them as invitations. Invitations for humans, and humans alone." But with legend came tension. Not all species looked on humans with awe. Some saw danger. If they can live where no one else can, one council leader warned, then there will be no stopping them. Today they build on death worlds. Tomorrow they may build everywhere. Armies were strengthened. Fleets were prepared. Yet even in secret war rooms, generals admitted a frightening truth. No strategy seemed enough. How could they fight a species that turned death itself into comfort? Still, not every voice was afraid. Some reached out to the humans. They asked for help surviving harsh worlds, for guidance in building stronger societies. And in these moments, humans showed something even more unsettling than strength. They showed kindness. On the burning plains of Dravos 9, after defeating mercenaries, the humans did not destroy their enemies. They gave them water, patched their wounds, and sent them safely away. On frozen Xylan 3, they shared food with alien wanderers lost in the snow, even as their own supplies ran low. The message was clear. Humans were not only survivors, they were builders, protectors, allies. But that only deepened the mystery. A species that strong and that generous was far more unpredictable than a simple conqueror. Stories became legends. Legends became myths. Across the stars, the humans were no longer seen only as newcomers. They were seen as a force of nature. In council halls, leaders muttered, "The humans are the death worlds." In marketplaces, traders joked, "Sell to a human. If it breaks, they'll fix it. If it kills, they'll eat it." In children's songs, simple verses spread. Where fire burns, where monsters roam, the humans walk and call it home. The galaxy had named them in many ways. Strangers, explorers, invaders, allies. But one name spread further than all others: the Death Worlders. By now, the aliens no longer feared the Death Worlds themselves. They feared the people who lived there, the humans. And yet deep down, many also admired them. For in the darkest corners of the galaxy, where storms howled and monsters hunted, the humans carried a truth that every species could feel but none dared to speak aloud. Life was not meant to be safe. It was meant to be lived. The final shift came not from a battle, but from a meeting. On a neutral station above a quiet star, leaders of several species gathered to decide the future. They argued for hours about human settlements, about alliances, and wars about fear and hope. Then, as if summoned by fate, a human ship docked at the station. The airlock opened, and a group of humans stepped through. They were not dressed as warriors or kings. They were ordinary, farmers, traders, children, and yet the hall fell silent, because when they walked in, every alien remembered the stories. Every alien saw the storms, the fire, the poison, the monsters, and standing in front of them were the people who had endured it all, and still smiled. The council realized something important that day. Humans were not legends, they were real, and reality was far more powerful than myth. From that day forward, one truth echoed across the galaxy. Aliens once feared death worlds. Now they feared and respected the humans who called them paradise. And in the centuries to come, when future civilizations told stories of courage, survival, and unbreakable will, they did not speak only of planets or storms. They spoke of the humans, the Deathworlders,